Hi everyone, this is acyuta-bhava from Nightlight Astrology. It is Sunday, May 10th. Happy Mother's Day to everyone out there, all the mothers, and anyone who's celebrating their moms or grandmothers or people who have been nurturers. So we celebrate all of you today. I'm doing a video update to give you a little breakdown of the Mercury Mars dynamic that's perfecting right now. It's been happening over the weekend. It perfects today into tomorrow. And I just figured my kids are asleep. My wife is taking some alone time for Mother's Day, and I was like, oh, I might as well make a Mercury Mars video because it's in the air, and I had been wanting to make one, but just didn't have the time. So anyway, Mercury is, I'm not even going to throw up the chart, I'm just going to keep it simple today. Mercury is squaring Mars from the late degrees of Taurus, Mars at the late degrees of Aquarius. So what can you expect from this? Well, Mercury is, of course, god of speech. Mars is the god of war. Mercury is the god of mental and intellectual things. And in a sense, Mars can work very well with Mercury because when you put them together in ancient astrology, you got things like math and science, both of which required incisive, cutting, dissecting, dividing, and analytical qualities of the mind. So Mercury Mars is great when it comes to anything that's more, that requires intense strategy, planning, analyzing, dissecting, breaking things down into their parts with a real edge or sharpness. Potentially can also represent critical speech or just more combative, like you think of a debate team and you think of a Mercury Mars dynamic. So um, intellectual debates, challenges, critical thinking, judgment, fast, speedy speech. You also have the idea of like the sword fighting with words, potentially cutthroat in the way that people describe things, or harsh criticisms. You can, just someone says, "Well, how do you like the food I made for dinner tonight?" Mercury Mars, you might be like, "Well, it's like it's not as great as I was thinking," and then you're like, "Whoa, like why did I say that all of a sudden?" So there can be this kind of explosive, kind of critical edge to the transits. So you do want to be a little bit careful of that. Mental agitation can be possible under Mercury Mars. It's just like taking Mercury and poking it with a hot iron. Sometimes it's like, not always fun. And Mercury Mars can represent the person can represent cuts, burns, and cutting or burning words or speech or mental qualities in general. Of course, Mercury and Mars can also represent athletics and sports and fun and competition. Mercury was ruler of court games in the ancient world. Anything that went back and forth, was had a sense of play to it. That would have been Mercury as well. So you have warriors, sports, athletics, and competition or games, but maybe with a little bit of a competitive edge. It's also possible for people to get really entrenched with both planets in fixed signs in their opinions or ideas right now. I know over the weekend, I held a Q&A, held a Q&A yesterday. I was like, well, afterwards, I was like, oh, that was a feisty Q&A in certain parts, on my part for sure, and on some of the questions I was getting and stuff like that. And then I got got a good, like a fair amount of trolly comments yesterday too, and I was like, huh. I was like, oh yeah, right, Mercury Mars. You can always tell when there's just a wave of that intense mental, verbal, intellectual energy either you're dealing with or you see it in the world around you, and you'll probably always notice that it's either going to be a Moon Mars dynamic or a Mercury Mars dynamic. So it's pretty, you kind of get used to it when you've been around the planets for a while. You can tell when Mercury's getting into it with Mars. Anyway, it should go pretty quickly. Mercury is moving into the evening star position in the next couple of weeks, which means Mercury is becoming more nocturnal. And when Mercury or Venus become more nocturnal, typically speaking, they become more imaginative, more reflective, more sensual, more feminine, more relational in nature, more yin, more dreamy, more inward. And Mercury is about to go into Venus's sign as well, while Venus is turning retrograde and Mercury is becoming the evening star. So Mercury is in the transition right now. It's as though we might be getting a reminder of the need to soften our mind, to soften our speech, to soften our point of view. But there may be a few, reminders along the way. It's sort of like it's hard to wind down in the evening if you've been working all day long. The change of mind, the change of perspective takes a little while as this sort of evening cools things off. So you might feel a spike right now. It's almost like Mercury and Mars are hitting as Mercury's trying to shift gears and almost go into a more fluid, receptive space in the weeks to come. Anyway, all that is to say, whatever's coming up right now as potential mental agitation, write it down, remember it. You might be working with it for a few weeks ahead, and you may notice that there's some really deep introspection that's possible as a result of reflecting on what's coming up right now in words, thoughts, mind, and so forth. So that is what I have for you guys today. I thought that this would just be a fun little update to do. I want to remind you all that my courses are starting on June 13th and 14th. My Year 2 course starts on Saturday, June 13th. My Horary course starts on June 14th on Sunday. And my Year 1 class, Ancient Astrology for the Modern Mystic, also starts on Sunday, June 14th. The early bird rate is still available, and you can save quite a bit of money that way. There's also a tuition payment plan if you need it, and we have opened up the class to anyone struggling with COVID-19 to use our need-based tuition. Usually we reserve that for people who are single parents, part-time employed, full-time students, veterans, disabled, whatever the case might be. And we've just kind of opened that wide to people who, you know, maybe you want to study astrology. It certainly could be a good thing to do right now, given that a lot of people are sort of, you know, in quarantine, and why not get a little monastic about it, right? So anyway, if that's appealing to you, check it out on my website, nightlightastrology.com. I hope to see some of you in class soon, and I hope you have a nice rest of your weekend, and Jai to all the mothers. Take it easy.